Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier, and today we're excited to have on someone who's an animator, musician, voice actor, writer, director, and producer. He's worked on such animated classics as The Simpsons and King of the Hill. He's the executive producer of the Disney series Hey AJ, and he's the co-creator of the series Milo, Murphy's Law, and my favorite animated series of all time, Phineas and Ferb. Please help us welcome Jeff Swampy Marsh. Swampy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Like listening to your bio there, like, when are you going to do something with your life? My goodness.
I'm a slow starter. One day I'm sure I'll get motivated to do
pretty
something.
much a hero. Phineas, we're going to get to that, but oh my goodness, like, some of the best, smartest entertainment. And excuse my voice right now. Today's episode is sponsored by Dayquil. So, we like to ask guests, is there any family background in entertainment? Is there anyone in your family, that, it was in the business in any way? And you do have, your grandfather was Les Brown, right?
He was indeed.
Tell us about him.
Oh, he was an amazing dude. His career was fantastic. He started out in a tiny town in Pennsylvania, so small that most people from Pennsylvania don't know where it is and or have never heard of it, and ended up starting a big band when he was at Duke, which became Les Brown and the Band of Renown. He discovered Doris Day. His biggest hit was probably Sentimental Journey, which he co-wrote, and he went on to be the first house band for the first Tonight Show with Steve Allen, which was what moved him out to California. And he ended up being the musical director for Bob Hope and all the Bob Hope shows, the Dean Martin shows, all of the Dean Martin shows, Bing Crosby. He was the house band at the Palladium out here for years. He had an amazing career and was playing right up until he got sick, before he passed away, and was in the Guinness Book of World's Record for a long time. He might still be there as having the longest continuously formed pop band in history. I grew up, hanging out with all of those crazy.
That's what I was going to ask. Well, you got to meet all these people? You got to meet Dean Martin, Bob Hope, and all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I used to go watch the shows being filmed, and it was for years. I always said, all the people who used to come over for the Christmas party. When you're little, you didn't know who they were.
Right.
So as I got older, I started realizing who used to be at the Christmas parties. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, when you're young, when you're a kid, you might not care at all. And you're like, holy crap. That's
just a bunch of old people getting in the way.
Yeah.
Before animation, you worked in sales and marketing, which is incredible to me. And you interacted with Bill Gates, I read. So what prompted you to change careers, and how nervous were you to give up something like that to pursue something else?
Well, by the time I did change careers, I gave up my old career out of terror. The terror that I would be, at the end of my career in my 60s, like I am now, and still doing a job that I absolutely didn't care about.
The other terror, that's the right terror.
And that was prospect was more frightening than being broke.
Wow.
So I just had that feeling the only real way to get out of it was just to quit.
Oh, wow.
And then I was lucky enough to have a friend who said, hey, I've seen your drawings. You should get a job in animation. I was like, okay, cool. I need a job, man. And he helped me get a portfolio together. And 3 months later, I had a job doing backgrounds on The Simpsons.
Yeah, how did that happen? How did you go from like not having anything portfolio to get onto The Simpsons?
I had a guy help me get a portfolio together. The only real art training I've ever had, and I've drawn most, my whole life, was architect. I used to do architectural rendering in high school, and we had this amazing drafting teacher called Bella Pelagi at Reseda High, who taught perspective like nobody's business. I mean, he was an amazing teacher, got me my first couple of jobs, and he was incredible. So the thing that I was able to put together really quickly in a portfolio were background drawings, and my perspective skills were really good. So when I started looking, another friend had a friend who was working on The Simpsons who said, "Hey, we're looking for background artists with strong perspective skills." So I went in with my portfolio and I looked great.
Wow.
And they
Wow.
said, "We'll teach you the animation side. You bring your, perspective skills." And that's how I got that gig.
So The Simpsons, they're like 800 episodes in. I'm crazy. What was the environment like when you went in?
I love that they're now on 800, and somewhere I still have my T-shirt, celebrating the 100th episode, which
Yeah.
we thought was like crazy.
A big
And
deal. Yeah.
when we had the 100th episode, Bart writes on the chalkboard at the beginning of the episode, "I will not celebrate meaningless milestones." The atmosphere was fantastic. When we went in, at that moment, we were the coolest job in America, to the point where GQ magazine had an article on like the 10 coolest jobs in the world, and animator was on there. I think we were above race car driver and
I mean,
up there with
right?
movie stars. And we walked around with our crew jackets like we were, kings of the world. We were so cool. And it was bonkers. We were working out of a converted apartment building and just making it up as we went along.
Amazing.
And it was great because it was back in the it was still the old school way of doing things. So we had paper, we did layouts on old animation,
Yeah.
desks, and still we're doing cells and photographing it with a camera. So we got to learn all aspects of the business because it was all happening right there, which doesn't happen anymore. We started out on Highland, in an old apartment building next to the schoolhouse, and then the contract shifted, and we were at Film Roman took over, so we
Okay.
were over in the valley, over near the railroad tracks, at the old Film
Wow.
Roman building.
Reading about you, for this, one of the stories that circulate a lot is that you cried at the desk because that someone would pay you to draw. Is that true? Is that a true
Yeah, it
story?
was absolutely. It was my second Monday. I'd been there 1 week, and I came in my second Monday early, trying to be the go-getter because I had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And I got my coffee and I came in and I sat down at my desk and just started to cry
Wow.
because I thought, "Oh my God, I'm so deliriously happy, and some idiot's going to pay me to do this. This is the greatest thing ever." And then my concern was all my coworkers would come in and see the new guy
See.
crying at his desk.
But what's great about that is that you got in there, you got past that barrier and in the club or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And you knew what was happening at the time, as opposed to a lot of people when they're young, they get in there and they don't realize they should be crying that they're in there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
appreciated it. Yeah.
No, and I, went on later in my career when I saw people came in who didn't quite get how wonderful it was. It was quite often, sadly, kids who were just out of college who'd never had another job, and you kind of go, "Oh, dude, this is really as good as it gets."
Right.
Don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't wait.
You're complaining
I'm
about
not saying let people take blatant advantage of you, but you really need to appreciate just how nice this is.
100%.
So that's when you met Dan at that there?
We were working on The Simpsons. It was when we moved from Klasky Chupo, the original company. We moved over to Film Roman, and I was sitting across in a cubicle across the hallway from each other, so we could see each other. And you start out by saying, "Hey, I need to draw somebody standing on one leg holding a duck," So, you're the guy who stands there on one leg and while the other guy sketches, and we just became friends. We had very, very similar comedy touchstones. It was really easy. And he was an amazing artist. And we were both still kind of learning the business. Dan had wanted to go into live action originally, but he was an amazing artist. And the first offer he got was to come do, I think he was working on James Bond Jr. or something. And he took it just because he needed the money. And when I, a few years later, ended up getting hired on Rocco's Modern Life, they were letting us write because I told them I wrote. I didn't. I called Dan immediately, went, dude, you need to come over here. They're letting us write stuff.
I read that you learned storyboard writing, you're self-taught like over a weekend. So as a former actor, there's that old expression like unicycle, I'm writing one right now. And then you go out and you try to learn how to ride a unicycle. I was
president of my unicycle club in high school.
Like, you're kidding me? Yeah. So it was that the case with how did that go down? I mean, how do you teach yourself how to storyboard?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of things I had a stepdad who always told me, take a look at the person doing the job you want, and if you think you're as smart as they are, you can probably do that job. So I always remembered that. And I knew I wanted to progress, and nobody was going to really give me a chance. And I happened to be working at a very small, odd studio in between seasons when I was on hiatus. And somebody said, hey, we need storyboard artists. Do you know any? And the hand kind of went up like, yeah, me. The guy went, oh, great. How, what's your rate? And I thought, oh God, I don't know what storyboard artists make. So I made something. I gave myself a raise, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And
because you've been doing it for so long.
And he said, great, can you start Monday? And I said, sure. And then I called a friend who was an amazing storyboard artist, Kevin Altieri, who storyboarded and directed on Batman. And I mean, amazing guy. And just said, hey, Kev, can you teach me to storyboard? And he's like, sure. And, excellent. I start Monday. And he laughed and said, well, I tell you what. I can teach you enough over the weekend that you won't get fired on Monday. And we'll see. But he gave me some really simple advice that broke it down. And I've said this to other people who kind of worked on that show and in that studio. It was a small studio. It was kind of an odd place. And what I thought was, these are the kind of studios that are going to give you the chance to do things. And you're also not doing anything on such a huge stage that if you screw up, everybody's going to remember. It was like, look, we can go and take chances. But Kevin broke it down for me really simply. He just said, look, in the beginning, steal from other directors and visual artists and cinematographers that you like. Find similar sequences and look at what they're doing. And he gave me some simple books to reference that just gave you the basics. And as long as you took it in steps, you were okay.
Yeah. And Rocco was with Steve Hillenburg, who did SpongeBob, right? That's the one.
Yeah.
How was he like? I mean,
oh, Steve's great, man. He was one of the nicest people ever. And he and I boarded the first episode of Rocco's Modern Life together, and we did a couple episodes together before they reshuffled the teams. But he was just a very soft-spoken, very kind, but really wacky dude. His brain is a very strange place. And very smart.
But that's a compliment. His brain is in a strange place.
Oh yeah, no, in the best possible way. When somebody said, in the early days, it's like, God, who would come up with a show so weird about a sponge? And it's like, Steve, if you know Steve, it makes perfect sense. You go, oh yeah, absolutely what you do. Sure.
All right. As far as storyboarding, we had a writer who's worked for you guys, Joshua Pruitt on.
Josh!
Yeah. And
Still working for us.
man, he is a talented, inspired artist. He told us not to have you on, but
No, I get that. Yeah.
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 No, I remember a question asking him about storyboarding. Do you think that storyboarding in any way helps your writing after you learn storyboarding?
The way storyboarding influences my writing
Uh-huh.
is that I stop trying to solve visual problems with words. You
Uh,
realize at a certain point this is a visual medium,
Mhm.
and you have to write scripts so that executives read them without visuals to get them approved. You get that.
yeah.
But the truth is, you shouldn't be um, writing stuff that's going to get drawn. You shouldn't overwrite it. You need to be able to give the visual artists the room to do a visual gag. And I always tell all the board artists, it's like, if you can figure out a way to do this without using the words that are on the page, do it. The less you say, the better. And so when I write, I tend to really try to keep it as concise as I can, and don't have people say things that you can see.
Right.
It's the joke we always use. The line we use in the room is, the trees are made of wood. Like, why are you saying that? Because we're looking at it.
Because that's what they are. That's
And
so
it's
interesting. Yeah.
even when
Yeah.
I'm writing for live action, I think about that. It's like, what are we seeing, and what do we need to say?
Hmm.
Yeah. So what was your involvement on King of the Hill? Another
Uh, I
another great animated.
I was hired to storyboard the first episode. I
Oh.
uh, storyboarded the very first episode of King of the Hill, which was really weird because Mike wanted it basically storyboarded like a live action sitcom, which was a struggle at first because we're used to Simpsons and doing wacky cartoony stuff. Um, and then I think I did like 3 boards before the producer came to me and said, "Hey, would you mind shifting over to prop design?" And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Well, the cars that you're drawing," because I started to draw cars because I needed them to storyboard, but the models weren't getting approved. And he said, "The only cars that Mike likes are the ones you're drawing." So I'm
Uh,
like, "Look, if you don't cut my pay, I'd love to go draw cars and props and guitars." And they went, "Great, we'll keep your pay the same." So I went over to the prop department and started doing props. So I
Amazing.
drew all of like Boomhauer's Dodge and Hank's truck and all those
uh,
early cars. I had a great time
nice.
drawing cars.
Such a great series. Yes.
We all moved over to the writer's room with Greg Daniels and everybody over in Century City, and we set up our desks there. So we were there with all the writers, with Mike, with Greg Daniels. We were all in the same place. And I really think that helped the series. We all
Yeah.
got to communicate and know each other. And most of the time in primetime shows, like even The Simpsons, we didn't see the writers or the producers. We
Right.
were over in our building in West Hollywood. They were over, wherever they were. And we met at the Christmas party.
Wow.
So this gave us a much better communication and understanding. And I just absolutely love Mike and the work that he does, and the way he treats all the people that help him create his
Yeah.
shows. He's really
That's
good.
great.
Such a talent. Yeah.
I
Well,
haven't seen him since, but
let's talk about Phineas and Ferb because such a great show.
There's 104 days of summer vacation, and school comes along just to end it. So the annual problem for our generation is finding a good way to spend it. Like maybe building a rocket or fighting a mummy or climbing up the Eiffel Tower.
My kids watched it when they were younger, got me into it, and soon I found myself watching without them. So you and Dad could see Phineas and Ferb were working on Rocco, and looking at it, it's such a bizarre concept. I mean, it would have been enough to have a sister trying to bust her brothers who are making wild contraptions, but then to have the secret agent platypus, the evil scientist trying to take over the tri-state area. So talk about those first discussions and how did the concept evolve from those initial discussions to the final product?
well, it all started with Dan and I just wanting to continue to work together. we did our first storyboard together, which was an episode called Wallaby of the West. We wrote probably twice as much material than we needed because it went so quickly. We wrote a song at the end. We were done, and we were done early. And we just went, "You want to write a song?" It's like, "Yeah, okay." So we wrote a song, and at the end of that, I think there was that mutual feeling of, "Oh, we need to keep doing this." And so we just thought, we'll create a show, sell it to the network, and we'll keep working together. Yay. And then we, it took 13 years for us to actually sell it, and we didn't work together at all in the interim. So much for that good idea. But the basic concept came from one of those middle-aged guy rants that you have, where we were talking about how kids today were just playing video games and watching VHS tapes or cable television, and they weren't getting out and doing things. And Dan and I were both kids that, built go-karts and tree houses and put on plays in our backyard and had access to power tools that we probably shouldn't have and all that stuff. And we thought that was kind of the great, wonderful thing about being a kid and having summers. And that was the idea. What would, these 9 to 11-year-old kids do if they were unencumbered by, physics and reality and finances? What would you do? And that's why roller coaster was the first episode. Yeah, we built a roller coaster in our backyard.
My son, that's the only show that I would stop and watch with him was Phineas and Ferb. I mean, and I was a little pissed off because we never ever came close to 104 days of summer vacation. Like, what I feel like this should be a class action lawsuit. I mean,
a lot of
use my
people
voice.
threatened us.
Yeah. give me my days back.
Yeah. Or why did you tell my kid there was 104 days?
Right. We're not going to
And
press.
that literally came because we didn't fact check anything. Somebody just said that. And we didn't even question it because we were writing the song. How many days of summer? And somebody went, I think there's 104. And we, okay, sings
That's
good, great.
Yeah, that's exactly what Josh said, how it went down.
Went for it. It's fine.
Did you ever hear from anybody who passed on the show?
One really great story. One of the people who passed on it in the very, very early days, many, many years later, was having lunch with another artist who works on the show, artist-writer. And she came back from lunch and said, "Hey, by the way, I was having lunch with this exec." And I went, "Oh, yeah, hey, how's she doing?" Great. She goes, "We were talking about Phineas and Ferb, and she had heard that somebody at her network had passed on the show. And she wanted to find out who it was." And Dan and I went, "Oh, it was her."
Yeah.
That's a great story too.
It was, I'm sure, one of a bazillion pitches they received that year.
Oh, yeah. And maybe it wasn't right for them at that time. Doesn't mean it,
Well, when we first pitched it to Disney, they said no. It wasn't what they were looking for. They called us 9 months later and said, "Hey, we changed our mind."
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Well, let me ask you about some of the characters. The first one that you play, Major Monogram, how did that character come about and the way you characterized him?
Well, we needed somebody because Perry doesn't talk. We needed somebody to kind of, it was just literally exposition. We thought this would be, a funny way of, giving him his mission. "Good morning, Mr. Phelps," that kind of thing. And my idea for it was the most trustworthy man in America was Walter Cronkite when I was growing up. So it was me doing a really shitty Walter Cronkite impression.
Is there a Major Monogram moment that is a favorite of yours? Because there's some funny things, man.
My favorite thing that somebody wrote was when they said, "It reminds me of my days at the academy." And he just pauses and looks off and puts his fist up. And we have no idea what he's thinking, why he puts his fist up, none of that. It just made us all laugh. And so we thought, well, let's just go with that. And that to me was one of the funniest moments.
Yeah.
And we've made so many jokes about it since. It was like there was no Carl originally. And one of our writers just made the joke. He was, delivering information. One of those little chyrons at the bottom of the screen comes up that says, like $1 million or something like that.
Mhm.
And he keeps talking, and all of a sudden he stops and goes, Carl, the words with 1 million are still at the bottom of the screen. And he turns it off. Oh, thank you, Carl. And he carries on. It was just a throwaway gag. And the next writing team had him talking to Carl. And then we got this entire other life for him that we never intended. So everything about that was just sort of a fun journey of what other people figured out they could do with our characters.
Well, and where did Doofenshmirtz come from? Because I have so many Doofenshmirtz related things in my house. So where did that concept come from?
Well, his original name was Mittelschmertz, which Disney checked. It's the word for the pain that women experience when ovulating. So we changed it to Doofenshmirtz. And, it was another one. We really didn't have all this other backstory for him. It was just Doofenshmirtz and Perry were an excuse for Dan and I to do big action set pieces, which we love. And somebody else, I think it was Sherm Cohen, was the one who he was the one who gave us his plan to take over the tri-state area. So he's standing in front of this big map, and he rises up, and it says, "And I shall take over." And he pulls out a magnifying glass and holds it up, the tri-state area. We thought it's so funny that this guy would have like manageable goals. And then we had an episode where he was trying to get garden gnomes, and again, one of our writers said, why does he hate garden gnomes? And we don't know, figure something out. And he's the one who came up with this whole backstory of him being in Druselstein and having to be the garden gnome for it. We didn't write any of that stuff. And it just grew. People laughed at it, and the next board, somebody else came up with a different backstory. It was great.
Such a funny show and a smart show. It really,
yes, on all the Phineas and Ferb boards, it always talks about your wife being of Dutch descent and inspiring several subtle and not so subtle Dutch references throughout the show. So have there been other cases of like family life bleeding into the show that fans might not notice?
My wife's sitting here at the moment.
Oh,
hello, dear.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, it was, because I know, from being at home, just enough of the language and funny words and funny, that when you wanted to kind of put something obscure in, started doing some Dutch jokes. And we did some Dutch language jokes, which drove our international team crazy. But it was really great to find out later just how much the Dutch fans love it.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah, we really have a great time. And, we would get notes saying, well, I'm not sure that might be offensive to the Dutch. And I'm like, oh, no, we have heard it from our Disney affiliate in the Benelux countries and Holland. They absolutely love it. So we've every so often slip a little Dutch thing in.
Yeah. How fun to have all these little Easter eggs. Everything. You've had so much music in this show, and you wrote some music, and you had some major people, major recording artists involved. I mean, was that something from the beginning? Like, we're going to incorporate a lot of music into this show?
The first time that Dan and I wrote together, we wrote our first song together. And we both were LA bands. We were gigging around LA for years. And we started writing a song for every episode we did just because it was fun. And we always believed that was kind of the easiest way to achieve immortality. The songs will live forever.
Yes.
All the stuff that you grew up with cartoons, from Sugar, ba 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 ba, honey. All those, songs that you learn through cartoons, those live on long after you forget all that other stuff. So,
we had him on too, by the way.
Who is it?
What's his name?
Andy Kim, who wrote that.
Andy Kim, yeah.
Oh, Andy Kim, yeah.
Yes.
And the network when we were doing Rocco's Modern Life loved the songs. The creator was less enthusiastic because they were harder to do, but we just kept writing them. And then one day he finally kind of said, "All right, enough's enough. If I let you do a musical episode, will you stop writing songs?" We're like, sure. So we wrote the recycling. The episode was called Zanzibar, and it was a whole musical about recycling. And then the very next episode, we wrote another song, and you could see the look on his face. It was like, "You promised." Like, yeah, I know, but we lied. So when we created our own show, we absolutely knew going into it that we wanted to do a lot of songs. And we just had to convince Disney to let us do it.
Yeah.
The way we did it was by writing the first one, Gitchy Gitchy Goo. And one of the
Another great
executives
song.
loved it and said, "Who wrote that song?" And Dan and I went, "We did." "You write one for every episode?" It's like, "Oh, yes, we can."
If you insist, right?
Yeah.
I have to. We spoke about your wife, Dutch Descent. I have to ask this because it's another reason I love the show. Just thrilled me when it came on. I am of Mexican Jewish descent, and I've never seen that pairing. And Isabella shares it. How did that pairing come about in the show?
Mexican Jewish Cultural Festival.
Right. Yes. How did that come about?
You know, we had there was an actual assistant who was the one who we always say fished Phineas and Ferb out of the trash can. So like I said, they said no to it. And then a year later, what the network wanted, the audience they were trying to capture changed. And they wanted boys. And it was this one particular assistant who said, "You had this show you liked that was a boy show." And we said no because it was a boy show. Here it is. And that's why we got it. And her name was actually Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
And so Isabella's original name, because Isabella came from Dan's first daughter.
Oh.
So he was going to name it after his daughter. So Isabella, his daughter is half Venezuelan. And then we wanted to honor Sarah Goldberg, who had gotten our show together. So we called her Isabella Goldberg. And we found out that there was like one Isabella Goldberg in America. And that's the rule that, you have to have enough of them that one person can't sue you. So we were told by legal, you can't call her Isabella Goldberg. So we went, okay, how about Shapiro? Mm-hmm. And I think we went through 2 or 3 till they finally said, okay, there's enough of those, you can do that. So she became Isabella Shapiro. And again, as the writers, we didn't know if it was ever going to get used, but as the writers went on and we started finding new stories, somebody went, well, I think it was the first Christmas episode where somebody went, well, Isabella is at least, half Jewish. We thought, oh God, what could we do with that would be really fun? And so the Mexican Jewish Cultural Festival.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I love that. So when Phineas, when it ended and he walked away, were you thinking in your mind, I think we might be going back at some point, or did you just think it was over?
We hoped, and what had really happened was at the time Disney had decided that they didn't want to do any more of the series. The philosophy at the time was, we have enough episodes, and our audience is going to continue to age out, so we can keep using them.
Yeah.
And what we thought they should have done was do the SpongeBob model and just keep making them forever. But they didn't want to do that. What they wanted to do was do like 2 or 3 big specials every year. And Dan and I didn't really want to do that. We just didn't think the characters worked that way. Mm-hmm. So we went back to them and said, look, not really what we want to do. We'll pitch you some other shows if you want, but what we would rather do is actually end the cartoon and do Act Your Age, where we actually got to see the characters just before they went off to college. Huh. And we did The Very Last Day of Summer, and we thought animated shows never get to actually end and do a really emotional ending, and we wanted to do that. And that was our choice. And they always said, well, maybe we can go back and do some specials. And we were like, oh, call us whenever. We love these characters.
Yeah.
Let us know. We went off and did Milo Murphy's Law,
Yeah.
which is a
That's
show
what
I
that-
absolutely love, that just never found its audience, I think, because it was on Disney XD.
Mhm.
And every year or two, every so often, somebody from Disney would call and go, "Hey, guys, how you doing? What if we wanted to make some more?" And they would like approach us as if we were going to say no, and we're like, "Anytime, let us know what you want. We're not going to say no.
Yeah.
Let's have a discussion." And then they'd go, "Okay," and then nothing would happen. And then a year or something later, somebody would go, "Hey, we were thinking, maybe, do you think you guys?" Like, yes, it's always been yes. Just ask us and we'll do it.
We have
And
not
then
changed our mind. Yeah.
almost
I-
3 years ago, they called, but okay, this time we're going to do just a whole new series. We want more of the same. We don't want you to change anything, just more. We went, great, let's do
Right.
it.
I'll have to say, when the show originally ended, I did my own Doofenshmirtz, like "Curse you, Disney," like that. Because I'm upset.
Sure.
But
I,
I just
I
want
love that people on the internet, though, assume that it was our decision not to make any more, and that if we wanted to make more, we could just come back and do it. Like it was because we weren't making them that they weren't. Just like, no, there's a whole network that has to pay, but we don't. You
That's
guys
always
give
a
us
funny-
a lot of credit for having power that we don't have.
That's always been a funny public perception. Like, well,
Yeah.
why would they just stop doing it? I like
Yeah.
the show. Why would they quit?
Couldn't
Like,
you guys
no.
please make more? It's like, sure, but
Okay, could you? Is your dad the head of?
yeah,
Yeah.
if your dad wants to spend like 40, 50 mil,
Sure.
I have
do it.
before we move on to the next thing. I just have one last Phineas and Ferb question, because this is always mind-boggling to me. Has such a talented voice cast: Ashley Tisdale, Vincent Martella, Caroline Ray, among others. One name always sticks out: Richard O'Brien from Rocky Horror fame. How did that come about?
So I've known Richard for a while. I had almost cast him in another show that I was working on in England. And my wife's family had, through a whole weird set of circumstances, been one of the part owners of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They had bought a film library from another producer. And so I used to meet him at events, and I'm a big Rocky Horror fan. I think
Yeah.
it's just a fantastic show. So and Dan and I both loved the film. We used to play the soundtrack when we were doing cleanup on storyboards. And so when we wanted Dad to be British, he was kind of at the top of our list. It's like, let's see if Richard would do it. It'd be great if Richard was, typical Dad, because boy, he's not. And I remember we auditioned like 5 people, because they wanted us to get down to 5 choices for everybody, even our own roles. We had to audition people doing Doofenshmirtz and Monogram. And at the end of it, we played the 5. And they were like, "Oh, which one do you like?" And we're like, "Richard. We've always wanted, you guys were the ones who made us interview Richard." And they went, "Okay." And one executive in the room went, "What else has he done?" And I said, "Oh, he was the host of Crystal Maze." And the guy went, "Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, go ahead." And there was another executive sitting next to him who looked at me and went, So as he walks out of the room, he comes by and he goes, "Crystal Maze." And I went, "First one I thought of." And he went, And I just, I thought, and now Rocky Horror is part of the Disney family.
Yes, yes.
As somebody once recently pointed out, does that make Frankenfurter a Disney princess? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
You're the executive producer on a show called Hey AJ.
Yes.
How did that show come about? What is it about?
I started an independent production company when I went over and did Pete the Cat for Amazon. Disney had ended, Milo had ended, and it was actually Leonardo DiCaprio's company called and asked me if I'd like to helm Pete the Cat.
Okay.
So we did. We had Elvis Costello and Diana Krall as the mom and dad. Great cast. Did a couple seasons of that. And at the end of it, all the people I'd been working with at Alcon and the music people at Sleeping Giant, we all thought, we really like working together. We should form a partnership and keep doing stuff like this. So we did. We formed Surfing Giant Productions, and we started looking for other work. And somebody brought Martellus Bennett's books, the Hey AJ books that he made, to Michael, my partner, and he called me and said, "You have to see these. They're beautiful." And we convinced him to let us create a show based on these books that he wrote for his daughter. And we sold it to Disney Junior in a 15-minute pitch, and did 2 seasons of it. But it was all really just animation adventure stories that Martellus wrote because, as he said, when I went to the bookstore, I couldn't find animation or imagination adventure stories featuring little girls who looked like my daughter. So he wrote them.
Yeah.
And that's Hey AJ.
And Pete the Cat, you worked on with your son, correct?
He was one of the main voices. He was Brother Bob. Actually, my son was also the voice of Ferb's British cousin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he had previously been the, if you've ever seen a movie called Hop.
Yes, the Easter one, right, the bunny.
He was the young Easter bunny, the British Easter bunny. He was a young Russell Brand.
Oh,
Very cool. How fun.
Yeah.
Snubbed at the Oscars, by the way. I was so angry.
Can't believe he didn't.
No.
Fantastic. All right, so before we go, I mean, to me, watching Phineas and Ferb is like a comfort show. It can be watched by generations because there's something for everyone in it. And as I said, I can watch it without my kids too. So how often do you hear from fans talking about what the show means to them?
Oh my God, on a daily basis. Fan mail, because of social media. There isn't a day goes by that somebody doesn't tell us, and sometimes in just the most emotional ways of how this show brought their family together, got them through a difficult time. Just people that were in blended families who said, "I can't tell you how much it meant to me to see a functional, loving, blended family." Things that we can't even have imagined. It's constant and it's wonderful, and I am eternally grateful every day that we get to do this and that this show has had such a positive impact. I said to somebody, most people go through life hoping that they've left they've left the world a slightly better place than when they came in. And we've been lucky enough to actually have people tell us all the time that my life and my world is better because of something you created.
And what a great tribute.
Come on,
that's
valuable. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
so
I know
if I never do anything else meaningful again, I've done
sure
this.
You will.
And I feel pretty good about it.
Well, the last episodes I loved of Phineas and Ferb. I know there's more episodes coming. So is there any word after that, or maybe even another appearance by Milo Murphy?
We keep looking and thinking that we would really like to do, because we loved Milo. That was a great show, and Zach, who you guys had on, was a huge part of that. And we still had more story to tell. So I think all of us secretly hope one day Disney will let us make the next season. Who knows?
And working with Weird Al too.
We'll bring Milo back. Definitely.
How fun was it to work with
Weird Al's voice.
Yes.
Weird Al is the nicest human you could possibly imagine. He's like frighteningly nice.
That's great.
Like he and Michael Bublé, freakishly nice people.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, good. That's good.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yeah.
noteworthy in the industry, but yeah, good.
It
And
is.
how can people follow you on social media?
At M Monogram on
Yeah.
most. I've deleted all of my Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I've stopped doing any of that. And I still have a TikTok account, mostly because Dan is like huge on TikTok. He's got like 7 million followers.
Oh,
So
really?
I left it.
Uh-huh.
But I don't really post to it. But I do love Instagram because it tends to be generally a lot more of a positive place.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
pictures of
I
people
will
making things and
Yeah.
stuff.
I will vouch that you have fun posts on Instagram as well. So,
Thanks. I like to throw some fun stuff on there from time to
Well,
time. But it's a nice place to be for people to reach out to you and say, hey, this connected with me, or I love it.
Great to have you
we
on.
really want to thank you. Seriously, huge. We're both huge fans, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
And Moosie, it's nice to see you again because I'm one of those folks who remembers your career on screen.
Well,
very fondly, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And also, you just gave away your age. If you remember
Oh, I know.
my acting days.
Dude, I'm my daughter is like 48. I have 4 grandkids, man.
Wow.
I know my age.
Okay. All right. Well, you look great.
Yes.
You look pretty darn great.
I'm still surfing and occasionally racing cars. As long as I can keep doing that, I'm fine.
Are you playing music still? Are you going out you play music? That's really good.
We haven't had the time, but every so often we get to. Like I'm in Ireland a lot because I'm probably going to end up if they ever let me retire, I'm retiring there. But I still get now to go over from time to time and go play in the pubs and sing-alongs and stuff like that. But we did a gig in outside of Nashville in Columbia for a friend of mine at his music festival, where Dan and I were supposed to do an hour of Phineas and Ferb songs, talking and telling. It ended up being 2 hours. And at the end of it, Dan and I were like, man, if we can ever carve some time out, we need to get a band together and take it on the road and go do Phineas and Ferb on the road.
Who's the band that does the theme song?
Bowling for Soup.
Yeah, because I saw them on YouTube. They have a live, and he's like, my voice is all messed up, obviously, but he starts to sing the first part, and then he just does one of these, that a front man, and the entire crowd is singing along with the Phineas and Ferb song.
He does that all over the world.
Oh.
And he took, at one point, I'd have to find it somewhere, he did a video clip where he cut together people in clubs and nightclubs and concert halls and everything all over the world, indoor festivals, outdoor festivals, all singing along. It's the coolest thing.
It really is.
I'm going to say that my son, who's also a huge fan, is listening in right now. He'll just play the music for Phineas and Ferb without anything on his Spotify. Yeah. So he loves it. But
that's gotta feel great.
Yes,
really,
it's so good. But it also makes us think that what it took for Dan and I to be successful in the music business is to quit the music business.
This is Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Jeff Swampy Marsh. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.